Here is something almost nobody explains clearly. Weak legs after 60 are not simply a sign that the body is wearing out. In most cases, they are a sign that the body has not been given what it needs to keep rebuilding itself. Muscle is living tissue. It is being broken down and rebuilt every single day of your life. And that rebuilding process depends heavily on what ends up on your plate. Once you understand that, the whole conversation about aging legs changes completely. There is a real and well-documented condition called sarcopenia, the gradual age-related loss of muscle mass and strength. It tends to begin around midlife and speeds up noticeably after 60. Researchers who study aging describe a related problem called anabolic resistance, meaning older muscle needs a stronger nutritional signal than younger muscle to switch on its own repair process. That is not a design flaw. It is simply how the body changes over time, and it is exactly why nutrition becomes so important in these decades. So today we are going to walk through 6 foods that nutrition science consistently connects to stronger, more resilient muscles in older adults. This is not a miracle list, and nothing here replaces a conversation with your own doctor, especially if you take medication or manage a chronic condition. What it is an honest, evidence-based look at foods that give aging muscle exactly the kind of support the research says it responds to. Before we get into the list, it helps to understand why this matters beyond just comfort or convenience. Weaker legs are one of the strongest predictors researchers use for future falls, hospital stays, and loss of independence in older adults. That sounds heavy, and it is, but it is also genuinely good news once you flip it around. If muscle weakness is influenced by something as changeable as diet, then a meaningful piece of your future mobility is still within your control, starting with choices as ordinary as what you put on your plate tonight. Let's start with something you probably already have in your refrigerator: eggs. For years, eggs were treated as something older adults should limit because of cholesterol concerns. Current nutrition science tells a more complete story. For most healthy older adults, dietary cholesterol has a much smaller effect on blood cholesterol than was once believed, and major health organizations have relaxed their earlier blanket warnings against eggs. What matters more for your legs is what eggs deliver on the muscle building side of the equation. Eggs are a genuinely complete protein, containing all 9 essential amino acids your body cannot make on its own. One of those, leucine, plays an outsized role in triggering muscle protein synthesis, the process that repairs and rebuilds muscle fiber after everyday wear and tear. Because of anabolic resistance, researchers estimate that older adults need somewhere around 2.5 to 3 grams of leucine in a single meal to meaningfully switch that process on, noticeably more than a younger adult would need. 2 large eggs get you a meaningful portion of the way there, and pairing them with a second protein source, like Greek yogurt or a slice of turkey, easily closes the gap. The yolk deserves its own mention. It carries choline, vitamin D, and several fat-soluble nutrients that a whites-only omelet simply does not provide. Choline supports the nerve signaling between your brain and your muscles, which matters just as much as the muscle tissue itself when we are talking about steadiness and coordination. If your cholesterol is well managed and your doctor has not advised otherwise, there is little reason to keep avoiding the yolk. A practical way to use this: 2 whole eggs cooked gently over low heat rather than seared in a very hot pan, alongside a source of vegetables, gives you a genuinely solid start to the day. Scrambling low and slow or a soft boil tends to preserve the texture of the proteins better than high aggressive heat. Number 5 is wild-caught salmon, and this one is about calming a slow, quiet process most people never think about: chronic low-grade inflammation. As we age, inflammatory activity in the body tends to creep upward, and that creeping inflammation can interfere with how efficiently muscle repairs itself. Salmon is one of the richest food sources of 2 omega-3 fatty acids, EPA and DHA, which have been shown in a wide body of research to help regulate the body's inflammatory response. Several clinical trials in older adults have found that omega-3 supplementation at levels comparable to a few servings of fatty fish per week modestly improves the rate of muscle protein synthesis when combined with adequate protein intake. This is not a dramatic overnight transformation, but it is a real, reproducible effect, and every bit of support matters when your body is already fighting anabolic resistance. Salmon also happens to be one of the few natural food sources of vitamin D3. This matters enormously because vitamin D deficiency is extremely common among older adults, particularly those who spend less time outdoors. And low vitamin D status is consistently linked in research to muscle weakness, poorer balance, and higher fall risk. A serving of salmon a couple of times a week alongside sensible sun exposure or a supplement if your doctor recommends one is a reasonable and well-supported strategy. Choose wild-caught when you can, since farmed salmon generally carries a less favorable balance of omega-3 to omega-6 fats, though both still offer real nutritional value. If fresh salmon is expensive or hard to find where you live, canned wild salmon is a completely reasonable substitute and often more affordable, without losing much of the omega-3 or vitamin D content. Number 4, and this one surprises people every time, leafy greens like spinach, kale, and arugula. These vegetables are naturally rich in dietary nitrates, compounds your body converts into nitric oxide with help from bacteria that live on your tongue. Nitric oxide is a signaling molecule that relaxes and widens blood vessels, improving blood flow to working muscle. As blood vessels stiffen with age and nitric oxide production declines, that circulation advantage becomes more valuable, not less. The research here is genuinely encouraging. Trials using beetroot and leafy green-derived nitrates have shown improvements in muscle oxygen delivery, exercise capacity, and even blood pressure in older adults, sometimes within just a couple of weeks of regular intake. The effect isn't about making your muscles bigger. It is about making the fuel delivery system that feeds them work more efficiently, which can translate into less fatigue and steadier performance during everyday activities, like climbing stairs or walking the dog. Leafy greens are also one of the best food sources of magnesium, a mineral involved in hundreds of processes in the body, including the relaxation of muscle fibers after they contract. Magnesium shortfalls are common in older adults, and low magnesium status has been associated with muscle cramping, including the nighttime calf cramps so many people describe. A serving of cooked spinach, or a big handful of sautéed kale, ideally with a drizzle of olive oil to help absorb the fat-soluble nutrients riding along with it, is a simple, low-cost habit with a strong evidence base behind it. One detail worth knowing: the bacteria that help convert nitrate into its active form live in your mouth, which is part of why some researchers now caution against using strong antibacterial mouthwash right after eating nitrate-rich vegetables, since it can wipe out the very bacteria doing that conversion work. Number 3 is Greek yogurt, and it earns its place for 2 separate reasons. First, the protein. A single cup of plain Greek yogurt typically delivers somewhere around 15 to 20 grams of high-quality, easily absorbed protein, including a solid amount of leucine. Dairy protein in general, and Greek yogurt specifically, has been studied extensively for its ability to stimulate muscle protein synthesis in older populations. And it consistently performs well, in part because your body digests and absorbs it efficiently without much extra effort. Second, and this is the part getting real scientific attention right now, is the live bacterial culture in yogurt and its connection to something researchers call the gut-muscle axis. This is a genuinely emerging area of study, and I want to be honest with you about that. The research is promising, but still developing. What scientists are finding is that a more diverse, healthy gut microbiome appears to be associated with better muscle mass and function in older adults, likely because gut bacteria influence how efficiently your body extracts and uses nutrients, and how much background inflammation you carry. Fermented foods like plain Greek yogurt are a reasonable, low-risk way to support that microbial diversity while you're also getting a strong dose of usable protein. Choose the plain, full-fat, or low-fat version rather than the sweetened varieties, since added sugar works against many of the benefits you are trying to capture. A spoonful of ground flaxseed or a handful of berries stirred in afterward adds fiber and flavor without undoing the advantage of skipping the sugary flavored tubs. Number 2 might catch you off guard. Beets. We already talked about leafy greens and nitrates, but beets deserve their own spot because they are simply one of the most concentrated dietary sources of nitrate available, often containing several times more per serving than leafy greens do. When those nitrates convert to nitric oxide in the body, the vasodilation effect, meaning the widening of blood vessels, tends to be more pronounced. A randomized clinical trial looking specifically at older adults found that a beetroot-based supplement improved muscle oxygen recovery and reduced the decline in grip strength that normally follows a bout of exercise compared to a placebo. Separate research out of the University of Exeter found that regular beetroot juice intake measurably lowered blood pressure in older adults within about 2 weeks. An effect researchers linked to changes in the bacteria living in the mouth that help convert nitrate into nitric oxide, better blood flow to working muscle, and a cardiovascular system under less strain. Both matter directly for how your legs feel and perform day to day. Beets also contain betaine, a compound involved in regulating homocysteine, an amino acid that at elevated levels has been linked to vascular and mitochondrial stress. The evidence connecting dietary betaine to muscle-specific outcomes in humans is still limited compared to the nitrate research, so I will not overstate it, but it is a reasonable secondary benefit worth mentioning. Roasting beets at a moderate to high oven temperature helps preserve their nitrate content better than boiling them for a long time, since nitrates are water-soluble and can leach out into cooking water. If you find raw beet flavor difficult, roasted beets tossed with a little olive oil and lemon juice, or blended into a smoothie with citrus, are both easy ways to work them into a weekly routine without it feeling like a chore. One caution worth mentioning: people on certain blood pressure medications or those prone to kidney stones should check with their doctor before making a habit of concentrated beet juice specifically, since it is a much more potent nitrate dose than eating the vegetable itself. And now, Number 1, extra virgin olive oil. This might be the most surprising entry on the list because fat has spent decades being treated as the enemy rather than an ally, especially among people who were told for most of their adult lives to minimize it. The research on extra virgin olive oil tells a very different story, particularly for people focused on healthy aging. Extra virgin olive oil contains oleocanthal, a natural compound that shares some of the same anti-inflammatory pathways as common over-the-counter pain relievers, without the same risks to the stomach and kidneys that come with regular long-term use of those medications. For older adults who deal with joint discomfort or low-grade inflammation, that matters. I do want to correct something you may have heard elsewhere, because it circulates a lot in online health content. The claim that olive oil directly switches on the same muscle-building mTOR pathway that resistance exercise and protein do. That is not accurate. In laboratory research, compounds in olive oil have actually been shown to inhibit that pathway in certain contexts, which is a completely different mechanism with different implications and still an area of active study. What the evidence more reliably supports is that olive oil's polyphenols fight oxidative stress and inflammation in muscle tissue, protecting the mitochondria, the tiny energy-generating structures inside every muscle cell, from the kind of damage that accumulates with age and contributes to fatigue and weakness. A large observational study following adults over 65 for several years found that higher extra virgin olive oil intake was associated with a meaningfully lower incidence of sarcopenia, though, as with most nutrition research of this kind, it shows a strong association rather than definitive proof of direct cause, since people who eat more olive oil often have healthier diets and habits overall. Even accounting for that, The biological mechanisms are well supported enough that most nutrition researchers consider olive oil a genuinely valuable addition to an aging-focused diet, not just a bystander in a generally healthy eating pattern. Buy a good quality extra virgin olive oil. Check for a harvest date rather than only an expiration date. Store it away from heat and light, and use it generously on vegetables, eggs, and cooked greens rather than saving it for special occasions. Here's the bigger picture worth remembering. None of these 6 foods work in isolation, and none of them are magic. What the research consistently shows is that muscle tissue, even in people in their 70s, 80s, and beyond, retains a real capacity to adapt, repair, and get stronger when it receives enough protein, enough anti-inflammatory support, and enough of the specific nutrients that circulation and repair depend on. Food alone will not undo years of muscle loss, and nothing here replaces movement. Resistance and strength training, even gentle versions using body weight or light bands, remains the single most powerful tool for preserving muscle as you age, and these foods work best as a partner to that movement rather than a replacement for it. If you take one thing from this, let it be this: eggs, fatty fish, leafy greens, Greek yogurt, beets, and good olive oil are not exotic, expensive, or hard to find. They are sitting in ordinary grocery stores everywhere, and building a habit around even 2 or 3 of them, alongside regular movement and a conversation with your doctor about your specific health picture, is a genuinely evidence-backed way to support stronger, steadier legs for the years ahead. Start small, stay consistent, and give your body the time it genuinely needs, because the science is clear that it is still listening and still capable of rebuilding at any age.